Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I'm your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you start experiencing so many changes in this time of your life, whether it be hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, brain fog, or weight gain around the middle that seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere despite you not changing anything. So you go back to those tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a bunch of cardio, yet it feels like nothing is working. You're putting in all this effort and it actually feels like you're moving backwards. But we know now that your body is inherently different now that you've gone through these hormonal changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to really help you understand how your body changes in this time of your life so you can reach those health and fitness goals, feel in control and at home in your body again, live a life full of vitality, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today I have a very special episode for you. We did a live training, a webinar in our Facebook community that covered all things phytoestrogens. Coach Chelsey and I did this together. And we talked about common myths, the benefits of phytoestrogens, how much you need, different sources. We actually provide you with a grocery list as well, and how they can really help you on your menopausal journey. It is so great. It is so informative. We do these webinars every other week in our Facebook community. So if you want more webinars like this, make sure you join because we don't always publish them to the podcast, obviously. And there's interaction and time for questions and answers and things like that as well. I hope you enjoy this. I had so much fun recording it, and I'll talk to you soon. Happy Tuesday. As per usual, today I have the wonderful Coach Chelsey, who has brought us with so much information and research on phytoestrogens tonight, which I am very excited about. Because it is something that people have asked us about a lot, and there's like misconceptions about it and how it can actually benefit you and things like that, and all the sources. And we're going to go through all of the things for you tonight. And when someone thinks of menopause and like the menopause transition, for many, many women, the symptoms they associate with menopause is going to be hot flashes, right? That's the first thing that pops into our mind, and what people usually like talk about, right? And we know there are so many other symptoms, though, like so many other symptoms, that it's not just the hot flashes. And we can experience many of them in perimenopause, early menopause, and like even afterwards, right? And a lot of these are associated with changing levels of estrogen that are in our body. And here at Vitality, one of our favorite ways to help support your body through this transition and help support your hormones is through a really strong focus on your diet. So today we're going to dive into the group of phytoestrogens, the type of food that can be really beneficial for you, whether you are experiencing symptoms of high or low estrogen. So if you have high estrogen or low estrogen, these can actually be beneficial for both. And a lot of people think it's only for low estrogen. So Chelsey, take it away. What exactly are these phytoestrogens?
Yes. So phytoestrogens, Coach Carrie and I, whenever we're doing like Dutch analysis, we're always like, eat more phytoestrogens because we love them. They're like a superfood group. And so a phytoestrogen is a plant-based estrogen. So it's like a plant's version of estrogen. They are not quite exactly the same as our human estrogen, but they have a very similar chemical structure, and this allows them to bind onto our estrogen receptors. The really cool and amazing thing about phytoestrogens is that what the phytoestrogen will do in the body is very dependent on your hormone status. For example, if you have somebody with high estrogen, phytoestrogens can help to reduce the signs and symptoms of estrogen dominance by binding to those estrogen receptors and beating our natural estrogen to those places. So we detoxify more of our natural estrogen. But for somebody with low estrogen, those phytoestrogens can also increase the role of estrogen in the body. So we can really think of phytoestrogens as like great balancers within the system, similar to the way that adaptogens work in our body. So let's dive into the different types of phytoestrogens that there are, and then we can cover the foods that contain phytoestrogens. And get ready, Steph, because there's some fun names to say.
Chelsey is so nice, you guys. Everyone knows that I hate the fancy sciencey words. I can never pronounce them. She has it like in parentheses. How did I pronounce them? I've never loved you more. So the main classes of phytoestrogens are flavonoids.
Flavonoids.
Okay. let's see, lignans and coumastenes. So that's in parentheses for me, you guys. This is not my forte. So isoflavonones, which are the most studied and the most well-researched. They're found primarily in soybeans and soy products. It is, like we said, one of the most studied ones, and it's been associated with potential benefits for bone health and menopausal symptoms. We know that as estrogen declines, we see our bone density start to decrease, especially if we're not doing weight-bearing exercise. So this can be incredibly helpful for that. Now we have lignans, and these are found in high concentrations in flax seeds. This is why you see everyone talking about flax seeds, and there's like flaxseed cocktails and flaxseed like shots and telling you to grind up flax seeds and all these things, right? And it's converted by gut bacteria into enterodiol and enterolactone, which are the active forms in the body, so how it's actually able to be used. And present in various seeds, whole greens, some fruit and veggies, like I don't even know what this word is. Like that's that's the whole alphabet, Chelsey. That's
I know. Sorry, I should have put brackets there.
Like, is this a typo? Did your cat walk across your keyboard?
Cruciferous vegetable family.
Oh my gosh. So just like cruciferous vegetables, like your broccoli and all those things, it's going to be metabolized by gut bacteria into those usable forms in your body. So this is where like flax seeds get that whole like big push, is because of that. And then the coumastenes, there are two different types. They can be found in high levels in alfalfa sprouts and to a lesser extent in clover, soybeans, and split peas, as well as lima beans and we have split peas in twice. That's okay. Yeah. But it's considered to be one of the most potent phytoestrogens. So that means it's very like concentrated, like it's got most of it. So each of these phytoestrogens can have different potencies and effects in the body. And the overall impact of phytoestrogens, again, is going to depend on various factors. So including like the specific compound, the type that it is, the amount that you're consuming, and then individual physiological differences. So like we said, if you have high estrogen, if you have low estrogen, that's going to affect everything as well. So where can we find these beautiful things aside from the flax seeds that I just went on about?
Yes. So there are tons of sources of phytoestrogens in our diet. And quite often we hear about the soy products, we hear about the flax seeds. But some of the other things that we can find phytoestrogens in are things like sesame seeds. We can also find them in some fruit, like apples and berries and grapes, peaches, pears, plums, cherries, and dates and cranberries. We can also find them in some grains, so barley, oats, in wheat germ, and in rice bran as well. We can even find them in some beverages. So coffee, red wine, and tea can all contain phytoestrogens depending on the type. And then we can also find it in olive oil as well. In terms of our nuts and our seeds, again, it's not only those flax seeds, but it's almonds and peanuts and sunflower seeds as well. And then for vegetables, we've got our carrots, our cruciferous vegetables, our bok choy, and mung beans. And then the other major source of phytoestrogens that we can find in our diet is in our dried beans and lentils. So in our lentils and legumes. So this is like your chickpeas. This is your black beans, your navy beans. Like any type of bean is going to contain a phytoestrogen. Now, you'll notice that both flax, sesame, and sunflower seeds are all mentioned in the list above. And for any of you who have heard of seed cycling, you can see that 3 of the main seeds that are used in seed cycling, so flax seeds, sunflower seeds, and sesame seeds, are included in this category. This is because they are powerful phytoestrogens. Now, it is important to remember that we can think of phytoestrogens as balancers. So whether you are experiencing symptoms associated with high or low estrogen, they can be really helpful. Now, I want to clear something up because they're not magic pills, like they're foods and they're superfoods, but they're not as powerful as our own natural estrogen. So for people wondering, does eating phytoestrogens have the same benefit as something like HRT or taking a specific supplement? The answer is no. HRT is either using bioidentical, so exactly the same as our estrogen, or a synthetic hormone that is an exact replica of our estrogen. So while phytoestrogens are similar, they are not quite an exact fit on those binding sites. So they create a weaker bond than an HRT estrogen would. So depending on the severity of your symptoms, the phytoestrogens can have different results. Other supplements like that have combinations of herbs and minerals and vitamins that help with they typically help with the natural production of our estrogen or the detoxification of our estrogen, so they work in a different way. That being said, phytoestrogens can be a fantastic place to start when you are trying to navigate hormonal imbalance in your body. And now, Steph, you're going to take it away with some of the known benefits of phytoestrogens.
Okay. So we know that there's still like a lot to be desired in the field of menopause research, right? Like we know, like we see things, we talk about it, we complain about it enough that like eventually then things get into research. Then it takes like forever to get funding for research and someone has to care enough to give someone money to research it. Then the study has to be done. Then it has to be like published, and then multiple studies have to be published. And then they do a big study that covers all the studies before it gets into medicine and like the mainstream stuff. So we are just now starting to get like menopause research in the last few years, which is insane. But it's because many of us have been making noise and being like, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what we're finding. This is what we know from like these things that we're seeing and like different certifications that we're doing. And now it's finally being taken seriously. Like it's wild. Like there's Bill Campbell. I love him. He is a phenomenal researcher. And I made a stink at a conference that he was at where they were talking about like calories in, calories out. And I was like, hey, how do you explain then the women who are eating really low calorie and losing and like not losing weight, they're gaining weight. And then there was one researcher who did not say some nice things and like actually like replied to a comment on social media to me, which made me very upset. And he said, we should be studying these women then because they should be able to power rocket ships making energy out of thin air. And I was like, oh, this is the problem. Then luckily, Bill Campbell was like, okay, enough people are complaining about this. I'm going to start dedicating some of my research grants to studying female metabolism in menopause, postmenopause. Finally, and in his first study, they already found that premenopause versus menopause and postmenopause, perimenopause, exact same like workout routines and like calories, all that stuff. Perimenopausal women and older put on significantly less muscle than those who were not going through this transition, which already shows us what we already knew. But they told us that we were wrong. And now finally, we complained enough that people are listening. And I'm so excited. So sorry to digress on that, but like it's a big deal and it's just starting to emerge. So there is research suggestion that phytoestrogens can be helpful in a number of different ways. Obviously, there's still more research coming up, and it's very exciting. So some of the symptoms, menopausal symptoms, right? Studies suggest that phytoestrogens may help alleviate hot flashes and night sweats in menopausal women. The dosage for that, it does vary person to person, but most studies say that 40 to 80 milligrams of soy isoflavonones daily for menopausal symptom relief can make a big difference. The next one is bone health. So research indicates that phytoestrogens, particularly soy again, can help maintain bone mineral density in postmenopausal women. So another check mark for that. Cardiovascular health. A few studies have also found that phytoestrogens can help improve lipid profiles. So like the triglycerides and fats, right? And arterial function. So how well your like arteries are like flexible, basically, like how much they can dilate and contract. And so if it gets hard, that's where we see an increase in blood pressure. This is where we start to see like plaque buildup in your arteries as well. So we're seeing that phytoestrogens can actually help improve that as well. And it's most likely related to the fact that some phytoestrogens like flax seeds and sunflower seeds are very high in omega-3s, which we know are beneficial for heart health. They're anti-inflammatory. And we know that menopause is that inflammatory state because estrogen helps keep inflammation down. So then if estrogen is low, we see more inflammation. So this is part of the reason that we think this could be part of the connection there. And then cognitive function. There is a small amount of evidence that suggests that phytoestrogens can actually help cognitive function in postmenopausal women. So if you're struggling with brain fog, right, or struggling with like concentration, this can be really helpful. So tons of good reasons to have more phytoestrogens in your diet. So Chelsey, how exactly do they work to balance hormones? Let me talk about some of the benefits.
Yes. Okay. So phytoestrogens work as something called a selective estrogen receptor modulator, and we call this SERM activity. So basically what this means is that they can have estrogenic effects, so they can help make estrogen do its things in some tissues, but it can have anti-estrogenic effects in others. So this allows them to potentially support both low and high estrogen states. So our phytoestrogens bind to different estrogen receptors in the body. Depending on the type of estrogen receptor, it will exert either a weak estrogenic or anti-estrogenic effect. So we have two different types of estrogen receptors in our body, alpha and beta, and we'll hear a little bit more about that down below. So the way that this works is that you can almost imagine your body as a house with different rooms. And estrogen is like a key that fits into locks on the doors of those rooms. It can control different things, such as your bone strength, your mood, or your breast tissue growth. Phytoestrogens, like soy and flaxseed, are like the master key that looks a lot like our estrogen key, but isn't quite as strong. So when phytoestrogens enter the body, they fit into some of the locks, but they don't open the doors fully like estrogen does. In rooms where there is too much estrogen, where it could cause a problem, like in breast tissue, where if we have too much estrogen, we can see increases in cancer risk, phytoestrogens act like a weak key that blocks that door, preventing estrogen from fully getting in. This helps protect the room from being overstimulated or getting too much estrogen, so it creates that anti-estrogenic effect. In other rooms, like our bone tissue, where we need some estrogen to keep things strong, phytoestrogens act like a substitute key, opening the door just enough to keep things working well, though not as powerfully as our natural estrogen would. In this way, phytoestrogens work like SERMs by adjusting how much estrogen-like activity happens in different parts of the body, depending on what's needed. They help to balance the system without overstimulating or under-supporting the body's tissues.
Just like, mom knows best, it just like turns it down a little bit and it's like, maybe not, redirect. So great. Okay, so now competitive binding. So in high estrogen environments, phytoestrogens can compete with endogenous natural forms of estrogen for receptor binding sites. So it reduces overall activity of estrogen in your body. So then that can help with estrogen dominance symptoms. With a weak estrogenic effect in low estrogen states, such as like menopause, for example, right? Phytoestrogens can provide a mild estrogenic effect, so can kind of help alleviate the symptoms associated with low estrogen levels without like being super potent, like HRT would and stuff like that, right? So it really does just like complement what your body needs and what it's lacking, which is awesome.
Yes. Okay. So this one gets a little sciencey, so I'm going to do my best to kind of break it down. But we have a process in our body called aromatase. And aromatase is an enzyme that works in our body. Enzymes are like a special chemical, what do you call them, a chemical or a molecule? I don't even know what you would describe them as.
I would say chemical, probably.
Yeah, I would say a chemical. And basically their job is to help speed up reactions within the body. So if we didn't have enzymes in our digestive system, digestion would take days instead of hours. So enzymes really help to speed up those processes in our body. So we have one particular enzyme called aromatase, and aromatase's job is to help to turn testosterone in our body into estrogen. And so some phytoestrogens, such as flavones and flavonoids, have been shown to inhibit or to stop that aromatase. So it helps to prevent possible estrogen dominance from that testosterone being converted into our estrogen, which can happen in states like PCOS, where our androgens are very, very high, and also during perimenopause when our testosterone is naturally supposed to increase.
And then a good way to like describe it is almost like, when you want your kid to do something quicker, like clean their room or whatever, and you bribe them?
Yes.
What it is.
Yeah,
it's that magic like speed up.
Yes. Yes, that is a great way to put it. Okay. So then we also have these two different types of estrogen receptor subtypes. And this is what I was talking about before. So we have estrogen receptor beta sites, and then we have estrogen receptor alpha sites. Phytoestrogens often have a higher affinity or are more likely to be able to get into the room of our estrogen receptor beta sites. And these are the estrogen receptors found in our ovaries, our brain, our bones, and our cardiovascular system, which is why they've been shown to help with things like hot flashes, improving your bone density or preserving your bone density, and then also helping with that heart health as well. So it is thought to be more protective, estrogen receptor beta is thought to be the more protective of the two of our estrogen receptors. This is compared with our estrogen receptor alpha, and these are commonly found in our tissues of our breast, our uterus, and our liver and our bones. If we get too much estrogen in these areas, it can stimulate cell growth, and this can often be involved in conditions like breast cancer, where too much estrogen stimulation can lead to tumor growth. So with this selective binding, we can modulate the way that our bodies can modulate estrogen signaling differently in various tissues, potentially providing benefits, again, for that both low and high estrogen. So now we can kind of go into some of the controversy and debunk some of the things that have been thought of or known about soy, because there's been a lot of really negative press, specifically around soy and its role in the body.
Yeah, there's like a lot of controversy, right? Like we all know, like there was a while that everyone's like, I can't believe you're having soy. Like I can't have soy because I'm allergic to it. So that's just not an option for me. But there's a lot of people get nervous because they hear like, oh, soy is high in estrogen, so then it can increase my breast cancer risk, right? Which is not true. That is one of the biggest controversies that was of concern of this like soy's estrogenic effect, is that it could like increase breast cancer, right? Especially women who already have, that run in their family or hormone sensitive breast cancers, right? And this was based on early studies showing that there was genistein stimulated breast cancer cell growth in vitro. So there was a recent large scale study and meta-analysis. So that's like a really big study, and then a study that studies all the studies on this area. That's like the ones you really want to look for. And they have those like studies that study the studies have largely dispelled concerns about soy and breast cancer. So you do not have to worry. A 2019 meta-analysis published in the European Journal of Epidemiology, which is a really good one, found that soy intake was associated with a reduction in risk of having breast cancer incidence and reoccurrence. So the American Cancer Society now states that moderate soy consumption is safe for breast cancer survivors. So, sometimes there will be like one study that like one or two studies that like just make it into mainstream media and then cause all this fear and stuff. This is kind of what happened here. Like that has now largely been debunked. You can have soy. It's actually potentially having a reduced risk of breast cancer with soy now, which is awesome.
Yes. And one of the other areas that's been a major concern with phytoestrogens, in particular against soy, is male fertility and hormones. So there were concerns that high soy intake might lower testosterone levels and sperm count in men. This could potentially then affect fertility as well as their masculinity. Multiple studies have shown that soy does not have adverse effects on male hormones or fertility. There was another meta-analysis in 2021, and this one found no significant effects of soy products or isoflavones intake on testosterone, free testosterone, or estradiol levels in men. So not only did it not affect their testosterone levels, but it also did not increase their estrogen levels, which was one of the main concerns. There was also another study in 2010, so a little bit older, but this one found that there was no effects on sperm concentration count or motility with like a moderate soy intake.
So the next one is thyroid function. Some studies suggest that soy might interfere with thyroid hormone production, increase the risk of thyroid disease, especially in people who are iodine deficient. And while soy can interfere with thyroid hormone absorption if consumed in very large amounts, recent research shows that moderate soy intake does not adversely affect thyroid function in people with normal thyroid function and adequate iodine intake. A 2019 review in Nutrients concluded that soy foods and isoflavones does not adversely affect your thyroid function in people who are, like it's fine. Like as long as you are having enough iodine in your diet and your thyroid function is quote unquote normal, you can have soy, right? It's okay. And the other one was cognitive decline. There was conflicting studies about soy's effects on your cognitive function, so your brain function. Some suggest that there might be a risk of like cognitive decline in certain populations. But of course, now recent studies that have shifted towards showing the potential cognitive benefits of soy. We talked about how it's helped with like brain fog, right? So a 2020 study in Nutrients found that higher soy intake was associated with better cognitive function in older adults. But again, there's more research needed in a lot of these areas. But basically the big debunking with soy is it's not going to give you breast cancer. It's not going to make males infertile or affect their hormones negatively. We don't have to worry about it with thyroid function if your thyroid is normal and you're having enough salt in your diet, and it's not going to cause your brain to decline. It can actually be beneficial for brain function. So those big like controversies, you do not have to worry about anymore. It's totally fine. It's great.
Exactly. Okay, so now let's dive into some specific research around menopause and perimenopause and what they have found phytoestrogens to be helpful with. So another very comprehensive meta-analysis. So again, this is a publication that gathers results from multiple studies around a specific topic that was published in 2021. Looked at the effects of phytoestrogens on menopausal symptoms, and they did a systematic review and that meta-analysis. So they reviewed all of these studies and they collected the data. What they found by looking at 31 randomized controlled trials, which means that like the researchers did their best to reduce any sort of placebo effect, so people thinking that they were getting something that they weren't, or any sort of like bias in the people in the study. And they looked at over almost 4,000 participants in all 31 of these studies. And these were their key findings. So in terms of hot flashes, phytoestrogen supplementation significantly reduced the frequency of hot flashes compared to the placebo. For night sweats, a significant reduction in night sweats was observed with phytoestrogen use. In terms of vaginal dryness, phytoestrogens were shown to be to have a beneficial effect on vaginal dryness, meaning that it could help reduce some of the symptoms of vaginal dryness. And in terms of our overall menopause symptoms, there was a significant improvement in overall menopause symptoms. So people in these studies found a reduction in their symptoms by using a specific amount of phytoestrogens in their diet. So from this research, the analysis found that a daily dose of about 50 grams or more of isoflavones, so again, that's your soy products, for at least 12 weeks was associated with the most significant improvement. Now, in terms of safety, the study reported that there was no significant increase in adverse effects compared to the placebo. So this suggests that phytoestrogens have a really good safety profile. And as I said, it was mostly the soy isoflavones, but there were some studies that looked at other ones. So basically what the researchers and the authors of this huge meta-analysis found was that phytoestrogen supplementation can be an effective and safe alternative for managing menopausal symptoms, particularly those hot flashes and night sweats.
Which is awesome.
Yes.
Just have some soy, you guys. Amazing.
Think of your diet. We can do so much with your diet.
Yeah, it's amazing. Everyone's like, I don't think it's just the way I eat. Like, it's 100% the way you eat. Okay, so how can we incorporate more of these into our diet? Because, we always love to give you guys practical tips. We always give you lots of the education. We give you the doom and gloom. Then we tell you about all the good things. And then we want to give you steps to actually do the things, because that you're not going to get better unless you do the things, right? Like, knowledge means nothing if you don't do anything with it. So let's talk about some of the practical ways that you can incorporate more phytoestrogens into your diet so you can start experiencing some of these fantastic, wonderful benefits. So edamame, 1 cup of edamame, so cooked soybeans, has about 80 milligrams of isoflavones. So in the studies, it said about 50 milligrams per day. 1 cup of edamame has 80, so you are good to go. Tofu, a 1/2 cup serving of tofu has about 20 to 30 milligrams. So almost there, right? Soy milk, 1 cup of soy milk contains 20 to 30 milligrams. Tempeh, it's like a fermented soy product. And a 1/2 cup of a serving of that, you can get your daily dose very easily. Miso paste, that's another fermented soy product. 2.5 tablespoons will provide you with that 50 milligrams. Or soy protein isolate, right? If you can find it in some protein bars, protein powders, which can help you get your daily dose. However, we're not relying on those, because those are going to come with all your artificial sweeteners. That's going to come with like sugar alcohols. And for a lot of people, that can do a lot of damage to their gut, lots of inflammation, which is the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So we're not like relying on those heavily, right? Like, we want to get our phytoestrogens from other sources, right?
Yes. So that goes into our next point. And I also wanted to point out that tempeh and miso are fermented. Fermented foods are also fantastic to help to support your gut health. So the more that we can include more fermented foods into our diet, like these ones with phytoestrogens, but also things like Greek yogurt, sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, or kefir, however you prefer to say it, kombucha, all of those types of things, the more we can incorporate those into our diet, the better we are helping to support our gut health. So, as Steph was saying, it's really important to remember that we are still shooting to aim for that 80-20 ratio of those whole single ingredient, minimally processed foods and really focusing on diet diversity. So we want to make sure that we're not relying too heavily on some of the more processed sources of soy, like the soy milk and the soy protein isolate. This is also where the saying, the dose makes the poison, comes into play, right? Like many things, there can be too much of a good thing. This is why many of the studies and findings have found that using a moderate dose, so aiming for anywhere from that 30 to 150 milligrams a day of your phytoestrogens, can be helpful. And this is why it's great to incorporate a wide variety of sources of phytoestrogens, like those flax seeds, sesame seeds, apples, berries, grapes, oats, cruciferous vegetables, garlic and onion, lentils, and chickpeas. While they may contain smaller amounts of phytoestrogens, adding in a wide variety of foods can really help to get you that adequate amount of phytoestrogens in your diet without having to eat like a full cup of edamame every single day.
That's just like protein. Like you're not going to get all your protein from chicken. You want to get a nice wide variety, right? And there's going to be benefits for all the different sources that you get. The next little tidbit is to focus on an anti-inflammatory, well-balanced diet, which is high in fiber. It has healthy fats, it has protein, and enough carbohydrates is going to be your best tools to support your body through the menopause transition. This includes some of these amazing foods that contain phytoestrogens, right? That can be a great way to really create more diversity in your diet by helping you ease some of these like crazy hormonal symptoms that you're having. And then also making sure that you're eating enough food. Because if you're not eating enough food, you're probably not going to notice enough, like a big difference in this stuff. If you are eating enough food or you start increasing your calories slowly, like you will notice symptoms will improve just from the stress reduction, and it'll make these foods more effective. Because if you're eating like 1,200 calories and you're like, oh, I'm just going to have a tablespoon of flax seeds, like that's not going to do much, right? Like you need to make sure that you're nourishing your body appropriately. And that's where things can be kind of challenging. And of course, like we are always happy to help you calculate that for free. The best way to do that is to book a consultation call. You can message me if you want, but my response time is delayed now just because having a baby, he like dictates my time all the time now. Like he runs my schedule. So I'm a little bit behind on messaging always, but book a consultation call. They're completely free. We'll calculate it for you for free. No strings attached. Don't have to talk about coaching. Like, don't worry about it. That's something we always want to provide for all of you because we give you all these tools and tips and tricks and lists and stuff like that. But if you don't know how much you're supposed to be eating, it's kind of negates it. And then the other thing too is there will be a guide that comes out. It's going to be housed in the Facebook group for you. You can get your copy that has the list of all these phytoestrogens and the benefits, so that you can like just incorporate like a couple every day, and it'll make things so much easier for you. As I know we like rush through a bunch of them. So you will have a guide with the list of all the different sources so you can get a nice variety. Because I think that is important so that you guys have that. So just watch for that in the Facebook group, and you'll have your copy. Chelsey, any last closing remarks here?
No, I think one of the biggest things is that like we really, really want to see you aiming for diet diversity and including like all different types of foods in your diet. So we want like some fantastic lean animal proteins, but we can't forget about like those fantastic plant foods, right? And making sure we're getting a variety of those in our diet. And a tip for those of you who really struggle with gas when you have things like lentils and chickpeas and beans and things like that, if you soak them in a quarter tablespoon, like with some water and a quarter tablespoon of baking soda for about like, you got to kind of think ahead. You want to soak them for about 12 to 24 hours before you eat them. It can greatly reduce the gas that you experience that goes along with eating those lovely pulses.
That's amazing advice. Look at that, you guys. Amazing.
Yes.
The flax seeds tend to be better if they're ground up as opposed to just like as they are. So ground fresh. I know a lot of people will like toss it in like a coffee grinder or like their magic bullet and stuff like that. I mean, you can crush them by hand if you want, but like, who's got time for that, right? I don't want to do that. So you can do that. You can buy the powdered ones, but it's better to grind it fresh. So that's another tidbit as well for you guys. So blend them up. If you're going to put them in a smoothie, blend them up beforehand and then toss the smoothie stuff in.
Because if you eat the seeds, your body can't break them down. They're very high in fiber. So like they'll literally just go right through your system. But yes, so like I'll often buy like a big bag of like the seeds, and then I will grind a whole bunch of them and then throw them in the freezer, because their flax in particular is very, very sensitive to heat and light and that kind of thing. Can affect the like omega count in them. So doing that, keeping them in the freezer is a great way to keep them fresh.
There you go. Hacks. See, we're all about practical tips, you guys. All about practical tips. So I hope that was helpful. Please share this with the other women in your life who are struggling with this stuff, or anyone who like says soy is bad. Unless you have an allergy like me, soy is fine. Okay, so you're good to go. We love you all so much. Thanks for tuning in, and then watch for that guide in the Facebook group with that nice grocery list for you. Bye.